So, what's next for MediEvil? Is this the end for Sir Dan or the new beginning? Let's talk about it.
Whoa!
What's up guys, Canadian Guy here, and yes, this is a MediEvil video! I know, right? See, I was sorting through my hard drive on my PS4 the other day, and when I saw the data for MediEvil, I was actually shocked at first. I remember talking about Sir Dan and his remastered glory back in October. It's January now, and well, we haven't seen too many people talk about the Skeleboy, so I thought we could bring a bit more light back to Sir Daniel and his adventures. But there is the basic question that I asked myself. What is the next step for MediEvil? It's not as simple as make more games, because, well, we seem to be unsure on that front. See, MediEvil was a game that was a hit and miss with reviewers, and its reviews were all over the place. It confused anyone that looked into the Metacritic scores. Some scores gave the game a score that potentially was a game that was in the running for Game of the Year, while others gave it a score equivalent to a busted game that should have never been released. Usually, within reviews, there is some sort of a cohesion and you can kind of figure out what the issues with the game had. But with MediEvil, some declared certain features weaknesses, while others declared the exact same features as strengths. It was a whirlwind to read through. The reviews were nuts, let me tell you that. We also never got any sales numbers from Sony. We knew that back in October and November, MediEvil was trending in the top 5 for the first week or two in terms of sale numbers, but that was all we knew about it. Then, Other Ocean actually released a big patch that helped with bugs, glitches, frame rate issues, update to the Dan cam, along with giving an option of uncapped or 30 frames per second. These were great quality of life improvements that Other Ocean had decided to add to the game. But after patch 1.02, that was it. Poof! Nothing! We have heard very little from PlayStation about MediEvil. They barely talk about it or mention it, with the exception of letting people know that it's on sale from time to time. There has almost been literally nothing. Now, after Spyro and Crash, even though the games were out, they still were tweeting and talking about various stuff in the game. But not only did they not create some social media profile like Crash or Spyro for Sir Daniel or MediEvil in general, they didn't even make one after the game had come out to interact with people to try to continue to market the game. This was one of my biggest complaints in a previous video I made, and I still stand by the statement that what Sony did in terms of marketing for this game was criminal and how little it was advertised. So what does this mean for MediEvil? Here's the thing, the people that enjoyed the original MediEvil absolutely adored the new one. The people that did not enjoy the original MediEvil certainly did not like the remake. Opinions on the game are extremely polarizing, but the fan base as a whole is actually quite clear that they enjoyed the game thoroughly. However, this is a smaller market overall for PlayStation. Now, the question comes down to whether or not they want to invest into a broader title that perhaps has many casual players and a good amount of diehard fans, or invest into a smaller but more dedicated fan base that may not have as many casual fans, but a bunch of ravenous diehard fans. The one positive thing to investing into a more hardcore fan base is not the sales of the game, but the merchandise. Diehard communities will eat everything up that's themed around their favorite game. So shirts, wallets, cups, plushies, you name it, the diehard community will buy 3 of each. Some of you might be wondering though, why is Canadian Guy A making a MediEvil video now? Well, one of the reasons is to remind us and Sony themselves about MediEvil. See, this sounds weird, but Sony has a tendency to, how could I say it nicely, abandon their IPs. Ones that get dedicated and die-hard fan bases and then suddenly drop faster than Bethesda's reputation. Like Parappa the Rapper, Ape Escape, Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, Little Big Planet, Mod Nation Racers, Resistance, the list goes on. It's a bit different from the joke made towards Xbox, where most of their exclusive franchises come from companies that they bought and was not made under the watchful eyes of Xbox, like Banjo-Kazooie. But these previous franchises that were Sony's were made under the eyes of PlayStation, and we haven't heard from them in years. I don't want the same thing to happen to Sir Daniel. So, in my mind, the next step for MediEvil comes down to basically two possibilities. The first one is DLC. Again, DLC is normally only bought by people who are diehard fans of the game, and since MediEvil has such a ravenous fan base, I think a giant chunk of DLC would do the game well. There is cut bosses, levels, and themes from the original game that would fit really nicely into a DLC chunk. We know this because unlike Crash and Spyro, Other Ocean had access to the original code of MediEvil from the PS1, and they could see where the developers were going with some of the cut content. Perhaps they could create a new game just from that. We'll have to see. And the other thing is a reboot of the second game. So the reason why I say reboot and not a remake necessarily is because of a few reasons. First and foremost, it doesn't make sense to make a remake of the first game, skip the second game, and jump right into a completely different sequel. People who were never introduced to the franchise and are now today, but haven't played the original second game, will be completely confused. Also, to go from one top-down remake to yet another top-down remake back-to-back would feel kinda weird. I know this kind of happened with Crash Bandicoot and Crash Team Racing, but they are completely different genres, and Beanox has added so much to CTR, it's hard to call it a remake just like the rest of the others. Other Ocean should also have a chance to flex their creative muscles in terms of story and writing. Another remake back-to-back can also put them in a creative slump overall, but if you do kind of a reboot of the second game, then this fixes all the problems. Ideas and concepts from the original second game could of course be carried over, but overall, it would be a new game with a lot of inspiration drawn from the original sequel. This would not only be a great creative way for Other Ocean to flex their writing and storytelling skills, but also allow them to plant plot seeds to grow an entirely new story for a third game. This also keeps the new fans from being lost in the story while giving old fans something completely new. I want a bright future for MediEvil. I'm still a new fan to the franchise. I'm no expert or know the story deep like I do with Crash Bandicoot or Spyro the Dragon, but I want to stand with other MediEvil fans to make sure that Sir Dan has a future. I am not sure what Sony's next steps are for him. I can just hope for more awesome games in the future. But what do you think is MediEvil's future? Will there be more games? Will it be another remake? Will it be an entirely new game coming up? Comment below and let me know. A huge thank you to all those who support the channel through Patreon and being a sponsor on the channel. If you'd like to help it out, check out the links in the description below, where you can buy some CGE merch or become a Patreon. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe for more gaming and nostalgic content. Thank you so much everyone, and I'll see you guys in the next video.